The night was quiet, the kind of silence that made every small sound echo louder. Inside a small house at the edge of the town, Daniel sat alone, reading an old book. The wind outside howled now and then, but nothing seemed strange, until he heard it. 3 slow, heavy knocks on the wooden door. At first, Daniel thought it was a mistake, maybe the wind, maybe a neighbor, but the sound was too strong, too steady, as if someone very large stood outside. His heart began to race, his hands froze above the book. Another knock followed, louder this time, shaking the glass windows. Daniel walked slowly toward the door, every step heavy with fear. He had lived here for years, and no one ever came this late at night. His mind raced with questions. Who could it be? Why here? Why now? The silence between knocks felt like an eternity. When he finally reached the door, he placed his ear against the wood. He expected to hear breathing, footsteps, maybe the voice of a man, but there was only silence, deep and cold. Daniel swallowed hard, gathered his courage, and slowly pulled the handle. The door opened with a soft creak, and his breath caught in his throat. There, standing in the moonlight, was not a man, not a woman, but something far more terrifying. Her tall figure almost touched the frame of the door. Her armor glowed faintly, dark and silver, carved with strange alien symbols. Her eyes burned like twin stars, golden and piercing. Her skin shimmered with a faint metallic glow, and around her was an aura, heavy and suffocating. It was not just her size, not just her look. It was the weight of power that made Daniel's knees weak. Daniel had seen pictures of alien species on the news. He had read about their wars, their ships, their councils, but never in his life had he seen one so close, and never had he expected the Queen of Shadows, the deadliest alien ruler in the galaxy, to stand at his door. For a long moment, neither spoke. The Queen's gaze was fixed on him, as if studying every inch of his human face. Daniel felt a cold sweat roll down his neck. His body screamed to run, but his legs refused to move. Finally, the Queen spoke, and her voice was low, filled with a strange echo. "I mean you no harm, human," she said, each word heavy and deliberate. "I come to ask for help." Daniel almost laughed in disbelief, but fear kept his throat dry. Help? From him? He was no soldier, no leader, just an ordinary man, yet the deadliest being in the galaxy stood at his door, asking for something only he could give. The weight of her words pressed on him like a storm. He tried to find his voice, his lips trembling. "Why? Why me?" he asked softly. The Queen stepped forward, and the air itself seemed to bend around her. Her presence filled the small doorway like a shadow that could swallow him whole. "Because," she whispered, "there are truths only your kind can protect." Her eyes flickered, for a moment not of power, but of deep sorrow. Daniel saw it. Behind her terrifying strength was something else, something broken, hunted, desperate. The silence of the night returned, but it was no longer calm. It was heavy, filled with questions and danger. The world Daniel knew only seconds ago, quiet, small, simple, was gone, replaced by a secret that could shake the galaxy itself. The Queen waited, her golden eyes never leaving his. Her hand rested on the doorframe, her claws sharp but unmoving. Daniel knew his life would never be the same. One choice, one answer, and his destiny would change forever. Daniel's heart pounded as the alien Queen stepped past the door. The room seemed too small to contain her presence. Her shadow stretched across the walls like a living storm. Every instinct inside him screamed to push her back, to run, to escape. But something in her voice, broken, heavy with sorrow, made him stay. The Queen's eyes scanned the little room. Her gaze lingered on the books, the cracked window, the ordinary wooden table. It was almost strange, the deadliest ruler in the galaxy standing in such a simple place. Finally, she turned back to him. "You fear me," she said quietly. "You should. Every world fears my name." Daniel tried to steady his breath. His voice was weak, but he forced the words out. "Then why are you here? Why my door?" Her golden eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in pain. "Because I have no one else," she whispered. The words froze Daniel's blood. This was the Queen who commanded fleets, the one whose name alone silenced entire councils. Yet here she stood, trembling ever so slightly, and saying she had no one. She lowered her head, her crown-like armor casting shadows across her face. My empire hunts me, she confessed. They call me traitor, destroyer of tradition. Her claws pressed against her chestplate. They want what I carry inside, a truth that could burn galaxies into ash. Daniel stepped back, his hands shaking. He wanted to believe this was a dream, but the fear in her voice was real, and the truth in her words felt heavier than iron. The queen looked straight into his eyes. I came to you because of your kind, she said. Humans, she continued, her voice sharp and broken. You are dangerous not because of your weapons, but because of your will. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. And because history remembers you, even when you do not. Daniel blinked, confused. What do you mean? History remembers us, he asked. The queen's lips curled into something between sorrow and rage. Your kind has forgotten, but I have not, she said. Humans were once more than what you see now. Long ago, your ancestors walked among the stars. They made promises, alliances, enemies, and me. Her last words struck Daniel like thunder. You, he whispered. The queen's golden eyes softened, just for a breath. Yes, she said, I once swore loyalty to humanity. And for that, I am hunted now. Daniel staggered back. He wanted to deny it, to laugh at the madness of it all, but deep inside, something in his blood, something ancient, stirred. The queen's presence did not feel foreign anymore. It felt connected. A sudden sound broke the silence. The window rattled, the ground hummed faintly. From far above, in the night sky, a low vibration began. Daniel looked outside and his heart stopped. Red lights cut across the clouds, sharp and searching. Alien ships were in the sky. The queen stepped beside him, her massive frame towering over his. They are here, she said, her voice cold now, like steel. They will burn this world to find me unless... Her gaze locked on him. Unless you decide to stand with me. Daniel felt his knees weaken. He was no soldier, no fighter, just a man with an ordinary life. Yet here he was standing in the middle of a storm older than Earth itself. The queen's secret pressed on his chest like a hidden weight. The choice he made tonight could decide not just his fate, but the fate of humanity itself. The night outside grew louder, engines roared. The enemy was close. The queen's hand touched the doorframe, her claws scraping softly against the wood. Her golden eyes never blinked, never softened. You asked why I came to you, she said firmly. Now you must decide if I leave with your help, or if Earth burns because of me. Daniel stood frozen, his breath shallow, fear tangled with something else inside him. Curiosity, duty, maybe even destiny. The deadliest alien queen had knocked on his door, and now she demanded more than his courage, she demanded his soul. The sky above Daniel's house was no longer quiet. The night air shook with the low hum of engines. Red searchlights cut through the clouds, scanning the ground like the eyes of predators. The silence of the world was broken, replaced with the sound of a hunt. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, his chest rising and falling in panic. From his window he could see them, dark alien ships hovering low. They were nothing like the massive fleets shown in news broadcasts. These were lean, sharp, and designed for one purpose, to track and kill. The queen stood calm, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Her towering figure filled the small room with an aura that felt both terrifying and protective. They are close, she said, her voice calm but heavy with certainty. They will not stop until they find me. Daniel's voice cracked. Then why stay here? You'll get us both killed. The queen turned her gaze on him, sharp and unblinking. They will kill you anyway, she said coldly. Anyone who shelters me will suffer the same fate. The words stabbed through Daniel's heart. He realized there was no safe way out. Whether he chose to help or not, he was already trapped in her storm, and yet deep down he felt something stirring, something bigger than fear. The queen moved toward the window, her armored claws scraping softly against the wooden floor. She looked up at the sky, her voice dropping to a whisper. My empire calls me traitor, but I am no traitor. I am the only one who dares to speak the truth. Daniel swallowed hard. What truth? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. The queen turned slowly, her shadow falling across his face. "The truth," she said, "that humanity was never weak, that your kind was never meant to be bound to one world." Daniel shook his head. "That makes no sense. We're barely surviving on this planet. We've never ruled anything." Her golden eyes narrowed. "You do not remember, because your memory was taken, but I remember. I was there." Before Daniel could speak again, the sound outside grew louder. A red beam of light passed directly over the house. The ground shook as one of the hunters landed nearby. Daniel froze, his breath caught in his throat. The queen's hand reached for her weapon, an alien blade that glowed with shifting light. "Stay behind me," she commanded. Her voice carried no room for argument. Daniel crouched low as the door shuddered under the weight of a powerful knock. It was not like her gentle, deliberate knock earlier. This one was violent, demanding, filled with hatred. The queen's body tensed, her armor shifting as if alive. "They will speak first," she said, "but make no mistake. If they see you, they will burn you alive." The door creaked again, and then a voice rang out, cold, metallic, and echoing with command. "Queen of Shadows, you are surrounded. Come out and surrender the relic, or this human settlement will be destroyed." Daniel's heart raced. Relic? He thought. What relic could be so important that it threatened entire worlds? The queen did not answer. Her jaw tightened, her eyes fierce. Instead, she placed a clawed finger against her lips, silencing him. The voice outside grew angrier. "You cannot hide, traitor. The stars themselves will betray you." Daniel's chest tightened. The walls seemed to close in. He felt as though the night itself was watching him. Every second dragged like a lifetime. Finally, the queen spoke, her voice deep, unyielding, like steel. "Tell your masters they will never have it," she said. Her words echoed through the door, calm yet terrifying. "For it belongs not to them, but to humanity." Daniel's eyes widened. The hunters shouted outside, their voices filled with rage. The sound of weapons charging filled the air. The queen turned to Daniel, her golden eyes fierce. "Now you see why I came to your door," she said. "You are part of this, whether you wish it or not." The house trembled as the first blast struck the ground outside. Daniel covered his head, fear racing through his veins. The queen raised her glowing blade, her voice steady. "They want the relic," she whispered. "But it is not just mine to protect, it is yours too." The door cracked as something heavy struck it. Daniel knew the hunters were coming in, and with that realization came another. The ordinary life he once knew was gone. The fight for survival, for truth, and for humanity had already begun. The door exploded inward with a blast of burning light. Wood splintered into the air as armored hunters stormed inside. Their bodies were tall and skeletal, with sharp masks glowing red. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy, aimed at the queen. Daniel fell back, covering his face, the heat of the blast burning across his skin. The hunters did not waste words. They fired instantly. But the queen moved like lightning, her glowing blade slicing through the air. Each strike sent sparks of alien fire scattering across the small room. One hunter fell, cut clean through. Another tried to shoot Daniel, but the queen threw herself in front of him. Her armor absorbed the blast, glowing hot with energy. Her roar shook the walls, echoing with fury and power. "Move," she shouted, her voice shaking Daniel's chest. Without thinking, Daniel crawled toward the back door. The queen cut down another attacker, her movements graceful and terrifying. Then she grabbed Daniel's arm, dragging him out into the cold night. The sky above was alive with red lights. Hunter ships circled like vultures, their beams searching the ground. The queen ran with inhuman speed, her claws digging into the earth as she pulled him along. Daniel's lungs burned, his legs struggled to keep up, but fear drove him forward. Behind them, the house burst into flames. The hunters had no reason to leave it standing. Daniel looked back only once, watching his old life disappear in smoke and fire. There was no turning back now. They ran into the forest, branches snapping under their weight. Every sound felt like an alarm, every shadow like an enemy. Daniel stumbled, his knees cutting on rocks. But the queen never slowed, her eyes locked forward, her senses sharp. "They will follow us," she said, her voice low but steady. "They will not stop us, till I am captured or dead, and if they cannot take me, they will take you." Daniel's chest tightened. "Why me?" he gasped, his voice cracking with exhaustion. The queen's golden eyes flickered. "Because you are no longer just a bystander, you are now part of the relic's destiny." Before Daniel could ask more, a piercing whistle cut through the air. A hunter ship descended above the forest. Its red beam swept across the trees, scorching leaves into ash. The ground shook as it fired, explosions tearing through the forest floor. "Down!" the queen roared, pulling Daniel to the ground. Flames erupted around them, smoke filling the night. Daniel coughed, his lungs burning. He wanted to scream, to give up, but the queen dragged him forward, unstoppable. They reached a river, the water rushing fast and cold. Without hesitation, the queen leapt in, pulling Daniel with her. The icy water swallowed them whole, muffling the roar of engines above. Daniel fought to breathe as the current dragged them downstream, but the queen's grip on his arm never loosened. When they finally emerged on the far bank, Daniel collapsed, gasping for air. The queen stood tall, her armor dripping, her eyes glowing brighter in the darkness. Above them, the hunters circled, confused by their sudden disappearance. For the first time they had escaped, but only just. Daniel sat up, shivering, his body trembling with shock. His voice cracked as he asked, "What is this relic? Why risk everything for it?" The queen lowered her gaze, her expression heavy with sorrow. "Because the relic is not an object," she whispered. "It is a memory, a key to humanity's past and to its future." Daniel's mind spun. He wanted answers, but the night gave no time. The sound of engines returned, closer now. The hunters had not given up. The queen's golden eyes blazed as she pulled Daniel to his feet. "Run," she said, her voice fierce. "This chase has only begun." Daniel staggered after her, his fear turning slowly into something else. A fire lit inside him, small but growing. He did not understand the relic, the queen's sorrow, or his own place in this storm, but he knew one thing. He was no longer just running for his life. He was running toward a truth that could shake the stars. The night sky glowed red with search beams as Daniel and the queen climbed out of the river. His body was exhausted, his legs shaking, but the queen never slowed. She pulled him through the wet earth and into a narrow canyon hidden by trees. The sounds of hunters faded behind them, replaced by the rushing of water echoing against stone. Daniel gasped for air, clutching his side. We can't keep running," he whispered, his voice weak. The queen stopped at the mouth of a cave. Her golden eyes burned faintly in the darkness. "We are not running anymore," she said. "We are going where even they fear to follow." The cave was deep, its walls carved with symbols Daniel could not understand. Strange patterns twisted across the stone, glowing faintly as the queen walked. Her claws touched the walls, and the symbols came alive, pulsing with light. Daniel's eyes widened. This isn't human," he said. The queen turned sharply, her expression fierce. "You are wrong, human. This is older than any alien empire. This is yours." Daniel froze, the words sinking into him. "These markings, they belong to my people?" The queen nodded slowly. "Long before your kind forgot, humans ruled the stars. You walked among empires. You forged alliances and wars. And when the darkness came, you hid your own past." Daniel shook his head in disbelief. "That's impossible. We can barely reach the moon." Her voice grew sharp, cutting through his doubt. "Because your memory was taken, sealed away, the relic I carry is not an object. It is a shard of that forgotten history, a truth your kind tried to bury forever." The cave opened into a massive underground chamber. Columns of stone reached it high into the darkness. In the center stood a monolith glowing faint blue, its surface smooth, humming with power. Daniel felt the air vibrate as they stepped closer. The queen lowered her head slightly. Her voice carried both reverence and sorrow. "This was built by your ancestors, a beacon, a warning, a promise, and it has waited centuries for one of your kind to awaken it." Daniel stared at the monolith, his heart racing. The carving seemed to shift, showing flashes of images. Vast human fleets crossing galaxies, worlds bowing before human leaders, and then flames, wars, silence. The images struck his mind like thunder. He stumbled back, clutching his head. What is this?" he cried. The queen placed her clawed hand gently on the monolith. It is memory. It is proof that your kind was once feared, loved, and hated across the stars, and it is the reason they hunt me. Her golden eyes burned brighter. I swore loyalty to humanity long ago, but when I tried to protect this secret, my own empire turned against me. Daniel's breath came fast. He wanted to deny it, but the images still burned in his mind. He saw flashes of a human commander standing beside the queen, a leader whose face was strangely familiar, almost like his own. Before he could speak, the cave trembled. A low rumble shook the chamber as dust fell from the ceiling. The queen's head snapped up. "They have found us," she said grimly. Her blade came alive again, glowing with deadly light. Daniel's chest tightened. "They'll destroy this place, won't they?" The queen nodded, her voice dark. "They will not allow the truth of humanity to return. If this beacon awakens, every empire will tremble, and they will do anything to stop it." Daniel's hands shook, but there was fire in his eyes now. All his life he had been ordinary, invisible, powerless. But now he stood in a chamber built by his ancestors, or as a chamber that remembered him, even if he did not remember it. For the first time, he felt a thread of destiny pulling him forward. The queen placed her hand on his shoulder, her claws cold but steady. "You asked why I came to your door," she said softly. "Now you know. It was not chance, it was choice. And now, human, you must choose too. Will you awaken what was hidden, or let it be destroyed forever?" Daniel looked up at the glowing monolith. The hunters were close, the cave shook again. The truth of humanity burned in his mind like fire, and his answer, whatever it would be, would change the galaxy itself. The cave shook like thunder as the hunters closed in. Dust rained down from the ceiling, cracks splitting through the ancient stone. Daniel stumbled, his hands against the cold wall. The queen stood firm, her glowing blade humming with fierce energy. Above them, the night sky was no longer quiet. Through the cracks of the cave ceiling, Daniel could see flashes of red light. Alien ships filled the heavens, their engines roaring like predators circling prey. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them, blocking out the stars. The hunters had not just found them, they had brought their fleet. The queen's voice was calm but heavy. "They mean to end this night with fire. If they cannot claim the relic, they will burn Earth to ash." Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of the town behind him, of the people still sleeping in their homes. They had no idea a war was unfolding above their heads. No idea that the planet's fate balanced on a single choice. The monolith pulsed with light. Its surface glowed brighter, as if it could sense the danger outside. Images flashed again before Daniel's eyes. Massive fleets of human warships rising from Earth's orbit long ago. Human commanders leading alien allies into battle, and a voice echoing in his mind. "When the stars turn against you, awaken what was lost." The queen stepped closer to him, her golden eyes sharp, her armor cracked from the earlier battle. "You cannot run from this," she said. "You must decide now, Daniel. Will you awaken the beacon or let them erase your kind forever?" Daniel's throat was dry. He looked at the monolith, his heart racing. He was just a man, ordinary, untrained. How could he carry a burden that once belonged to entire civilizations? Yet deep inside he felt it, the same fire that had carried his ancestors through galaxies, a fire that had waited centuries to rise again. Before he could answer, the cavern exploded in fire. The hunters had broken through, their armored forms flooding the chamber. Weapons blazed, beams of light tearing through the stone. Daniel dove to the ground, heat searing across his skin. The queen roared, her blade cutting through the attackers. Each strike sent alien bodies crashing to the floor, but there were too many. "Activate it," she shouted, her voice fierce. "Only you can, now!" Daniel crawled to the monolith, his hand trembling as he pressed it against the glowing surface. The stone was cold, but it pulsed with life. The chamber shook violently, light erupting from the carvings. Symbols blazed across the walls like fire, and a deep hum filled the earth itself. The hunters froze, their masks flickering with static. The queen fought with renewed fury, her golden eyes glowing brighter as the beacon awakened. Above the cave, the sky erupted. Earth itself responded. Ancient weapons hidden for centuries burst to life. Massive cannons hidden under mountains unfolded. Orbital shields shimmered above the clouds. For the first time in millennia, Earth remembered its power. Daniel's body shook as visions poured into his mind. He saw fleets that once belonged to humanity, ships so vast they could block suns, commanders with eyes like his, voices like his. He realized with terror and awe. The relic wasn't just memory, it was a call, a key, a command. The hunters screamed, "Your voice is metallic and broken. Stop him! Destroy the beacon!" But it was too late. The ground split open, beams of light shot into the sky. The fleet above Earth faltered, their systems failing against defenses older than their empire itself. The queen fought her way to Daniel, her armor cracked and burning. She knelt beside him, her voice low but fierce. "You see now why I came. I was never here to conquer. I was here to remind you who you are." Daniel looked at her, his vision blurred by light and memory. "But why me?" he whispered. The queen's claws touched his chest gently. "Because destiny always chooses the ordinary. It is the ordinary who become legends." The chamber roared as more explosions rocked the earth. The enemy would not give up, but humanity's fire had awakened, and for the first time, Daniel felt not like a victim, but like a soldier standing on the edge of history. The queen rose again, her blade blazing with alien fire. She stood in front of him, unyielding. "Stay alive," she commanded, "because when this is over, your kind will need you more than ever." Daniel's breath shook as he looked at the beacon. Above them, the sky was a storm of war. Below, the cavern burned with fire and light. The deadliest alien queen had chosen him, and now the galaxy itself waited for his next step. The cavern blazed with light, the monolith roaring like a heartbeat that had been silent for ages. Above, the sky shook with thunder as Earth's forgotten defenses awakened. Alien ships fell from the heavens, torn apart by weapons buried for millennia. The ground itself seemed alive, protecting the world it had once sworn to defend. Daniel staggered forward, his hands pressed against the glowing stone. Visions swirled through his mind. Fleets of humanity, endless stars, great wars fought and won. It was overwhelming, yet it felt strangely familiar, as if the blood in his veins had been waiting for this moment all along. The queen stood at his side, her golden eyes fierce, her armor cracked, her blade dripping with alien fire, but there was no fear in her face, only sorrow. "Do you see it now?" she asked softly. "Do you see who you were meant to be?" Daniel nodded weakly, his voice trembling. "Yes, but why hide it? Why bury the truth from us?" The queen's gaze lowered, her words heavy. "Because your kind was too powerful. Empires feared you, enemies united against you, and when you chose peace, they erased your memory. They chained you to one world. They wanted humanity to forget because they knew, if you remembered, no force in the galaxy could stop you." The hunters roared as more of them flooded the chamber, their voices metallic, desperate. "Destroy the beacon. End the bloodline." They charged, weapons blazing. The queen moved like a storm, cutting through them with her last strength. But Daniel could see her falter, her movements slower, her wounds deep. One hunter raised its weapon toward Daniel. The queen threw herself in front of him, the blast tearing through her side. She fell to one knee, her blade clattering against the stone. Daniel caught her, his heart pounding. "No, stay with me," he whispered. Her golden eyes dimmed, but her voice was steady. "This was always the cost," she said, "to protect what must rise again." Daniel shook his head, his hands trembling. "You can't die, not now, not after everything." The queen smiled faintly, a rare softness breaking through her fierce face. "I am not truly dying," she whispered, "for I was never only alien." Daniel froze, confusion in his eyes. Her claws touched his hand, cold and trembling. "My secret. The truth I could not tell them. I was created with human blood. Your ancestors made me. I am part of you. I was born to guard what humanity left behind, and now I return it to you." Her body glowed faintly as the monolith pulsed brighter. Daniel felt a surge of warmth flow into him, her power, her memory, her very essence seemed to pour into his veins. He gasped as visions overwhelmed him. Her battles, her vows, her centuries of guarding humanity's legacy, and at the core of it all, a single promise: humanity will rise again. The hunters screamed, their weapons failing as the monolith's energy tore through them. The cavern shook violently, light consuming everything, and then silence. When Daniel opened his eyes, the queen was gone. Only her broken crown lay at his feet. but he could still feel her inside him. Her voice whispered in his mind, steady and unyielding. You are no longer ordinary. You are the bridge between what was and what will be. Daniel stood, his body trembling but filled with fire. He looked up at the sky through the cracked ceiling. The fleets above Earth were retreating, terrified of what had awakened. Humanity's shadow had become light again, and every empire in the galaxy would soon know. He picked up the crown, holding it close. Tears burned his eyes, his soul shaken by the secret she had left behind. The deadliest alien queen was gone, but her truth lived inside him, a truth that would change the galaxy forever. At the mouth of the cave, Daniel stood tall. The dawn was breaking, light spilling across the horizon. The world seemed the same, yet nothing was the same anymore. He whispered to the rising sun, his voice steady. I will keep your secret. I will keep your promise. And when the galaxy comes again, humanity will be ready. The wind carried his words, the earth hummed with hidden power, and somewhere, beyond the stars, the queen's voice echoed one last time. You are not alone. Daniel's soul trembled with the weight of it. The deadliest alien queen had knocked on his door, and her secret had not just shaken him, it had awakened humanity.